Up front.
I'm sorry
Just
about
move-
the
move the chair. what you've all been waiting for. Don Kenefick is no stranger to us here at UUFR. We are blessed to have him as our resident musician and professional actor. In recent years, he played Drummond, a defense lawyer in the Westmoreland production of Inherit the Wind. He also brilliantly played Andrei Botvinnik, a Russian sleeper agent, in the Lancaster Players production of A Walk in the Woods. Don has also been a member of the Kilmarnock District Pipe Band. He frequently graces us with his songs, his bagpipes, and his ukulele. And today, we're in for a treat. Digging into his Welsh roots, he will bring Dylan Thomas and our childlike spirit to life, reading A Child's Christmas in Wales. And Jeff Guys and I will fill in a few voices here and there.
So this is A Child's Christmas in Wales. One Christmas was so much like the other that those years around the Seatown corner now, out of all sound except the distant speaking of the voices I sometimes hear a moment before I sleep, that I can never remember whether it snowed for 6 days and 6 nights when I was 12, or whether it snowed for 12 days and 12 nights when I was 6. All the Christmases rolled down towards the two-tongued sea like a cold and headlong moon bundling down the sky that was our street. And they stopped at the rim of the ice-edged, fist-freezing waves, and I plunge my hands into the snow and bring out whatever I can find. In goes my hand into the wool-white bell-tongued ball of holidays resting at the rim of the carol-singing sea, and out come Mrs. Prothero and the firemen. It was on the afternoon of the day of Christmas Eve, and I was in Miss Prothero's garden waiting for cats with her son Jim. It was snowing, and it was always snowing at Christmas. December, in my memory, is as white as Lapland, although there were no reindeer, but there were cats. To snowball the cats, sleek and long as jaguars and horrible-whiskered, spitting and snarling, they would slide and sidle up along the white back garden walls, and the lynx-eyed hunters, Jim and I, fur-capped and moccasined trappers from the Hudson Bay off Mumbles Road, would hurl our deadly snowballs at the green of their eyes. The wise cats never appeared. We were still Eskimo-footed Arctic marksmen in our muffling silence of the eternal snows. Mrs. Prothero, eternal ever since Wednesday. Mrs. Prothero, that we never heard Miss Prothero's first cry from her igloo at the bottom of the garden, or if we heard it all, it was to us like the far-off challenge of our enemy and prey, the neighbor's polar cat. But soon the voice grew louder. "Fire! Fire!" cried Mrs. Prothero, and beat the dinner gong. And we ran down the garden with the snowballs in our arms towards the house, and smoke indeed was pouring out of the dining room, and gong was bombulating, and Mrs. Prothero was announcing ruin like a town crier in Pompeii. This was better than all the cats in Wales, standing on the wall in a row. We bounded into the house, laden with snowballs, and stopped at the open door of the smoke-filled room. Something was burning, all right. Perhaps it was Mr. Prothero, who always slept there after a midday dinner with a newspaper over his face. But he was standing in the middle of the room saying,
"A fine Christmas!"
and smacking at the smoke with his slipper.
"Call the fire brigade!"
cried Mrs. Prothero as she beat the gong.
They won't be care. It's Christmas.
said Mr. Prothero. There was no fire to be seen, only clouds of smoke, and Mr. Prothero standing in the middle of them, waving his slipper as though he were conducting.
Do something.
He said, and we threw all our snowballs into the smoke. I think we missed Mr. Prothero and ran out of the house to the telephone box.
Let's call the police as well,
Jim said,
and the ambulance, and Ernie Jenkins, he likes fires.
but we only called the fire brigade, and soon the fire engine came, and 3 tall men in helmets brought a hose to the house, and Mr. Prothero got out just in time before they turned it on. Nobody could have had a noisier Christmas ever. And when the firemen turned off the hose, they were standing in a wet, smoky room. Jim's aunt, Miss Prothero, came downstairs and peered in on them. Jim and I waited very quietly to hear what she would say to them. She said the right thing always. She looked at the 3 tall firemen in their shiny helmets and standing among the smoke and cinders and dissolving snowballs, and she said,
Oh, would you like anything to read?
years and years ago, when I was a boy, when there were wolves in Wales and birds the color of red flannel petticoats whisked past the heart-shaped hills, when we sang and wallowed all night and days in caves that smelt like Sunday afternoons in a damp front farmhouse parlors. We chased with the jawbones of deacons before the Duchess-faced horses, when we rode the daft and happy hills bareback. It snowed and it snowed. But here a small boy says,
It snowed last year too. I made a snowman, my brother knocked it down, and I knocked my brother down, and then we had tea.
but that was the snow, the same snow, I say. Our snow was not only shaken from the whitewashed buckets down from the sky, it came shawling out of the ground and swam and drifted out of the arms and hands and bodies of the trees. Snow grew overnight on the roofs of our houses. The houses, like a pure and grandfather moss. Minutely lived ivy, the walls had settled on the postman, opening up the gates like a dumb thunderstorm of white torn Christmas cards.
Were there postmen then there too?
With sparkling eyes and wind-cherried noses, our spread frozen feet, they crunched up to the doors and mittened on them manfully. But all the children could hear was a ringing of bells.
You mean the postman went rat-a-tat-tat and the door rang?
I mean that the bells that the children could hear were inside them.
I only hear thunder sometimes, never bells.
There were church bells too.
Inside of them?
No, in the back black snow-white belfries, tugged by bishops and storks, and they rang their tidings over the bandaged town, over the frozen foam, the prowler and the ice cream hills, over the crackling sea. It seemed that all of the churches boomed for joy under my window, and the weathercocks crew for Christmas on our fence.
Get back to the postman.
They were just ordinary postmen, fond of walking and dogs and Christmas and the snow. They knocked on the doors with blue knockers.
Ours got a black knocker.
And then they stood in a white welcome mat in the little drifted porches and huffed and puffed, making like ghosts with their breath, and jogged from foot to foot like small boys wanting to go out.
And then the presents?
There were the usual useful presents, engulfing mufflers and of the old coach days, and mittens made for giant sloths. zebra scarves of a substance like silky gum that could be tug-o-war down to the galoshes, blinding tam o' shanters, like patchwork tea cozies and bunny-suited busbies, and balaclavas for victims of head-shrinking tribes. From aunts who always wore wool next to the skin, there were mustached and rasping vests that made you wonder why the aunts had any skin left at all. And once I had a little crocheted nose bag from an aunt now, alas no longer whinnying with us, and pictureless books which small boys, though worn with quotations not to, would skate on Farmer Giles' pond and drowned, and books that told me everything about the wasp, except why.
Go on to the useless presents.
Hung from the gas brackets in all front parlors, there was sherry and walnuts and bottled beer and crackers by the dessert spoons. And cats in their fur about watched the fires and the high heaped fires spat, all ready for the chestnuts and the mulling pokers. Some few large men sat in the front parlor without their collars. Uncle at arm's length, uncles almost certainly trying to, with their new cigars, hold them out judiciously at arm's length, returning them to their mouths, coughing, then pulling them out again, as if waiting for the explosion, and some few small aunts, not wanted in the kitchen, nor anywhere else for that matter, sat on the very edges of their chairs, poised and brittle, afraid to speak, like faded cups and saucers. Not many more those mornings trod the piling streets, an old man, always fawn-mullered, yellow-gloved, and at this time of the year, with spats of snow, would take his constitutional to the white Bowling Green and back, as he would take nitwit or fine on Christmas Day or Doomsday, sometimes two hale young men with big pipes blazing, no overcoats, and wind-blown scarves would trudge unspeaking down to the forlorn sea, to work up an appetite, to blow away the fumes, who knows, to walk into the waves until nothing of them was left but the two curling smoke clouds of the inextinguishable briars. Then I would be slap-dashing home, and the gravy smell of the dinners of others, the bird smell, the bran, the pudding, and mince, coiling up my nostrils when I was out of a snow-clogged side lane would come a boy, then the spit of myself, with a pink-tipped cigarette and the violet past of a black eye, cocky as a bullfinch, leering all to himself. I hated him on sight and sound. That would be about to put my dog whistle to my lips and blow him off the face of Christmas, when suddenly he, with a violent wink, put his whistle to his lips and blew so stridently, so high, so exquisitely loud, that gobbling faces, their cheekbones with goose, would press against the tinsel window the whole length of the white echoing street. For dinner we had turkey and blazing pudding, and after the dinner the uncles sat in front of the fire, loosed all buttons, and put their large moist hands over their watch chains, groaning a little, and slept. Mother's aunt and sisters scuttled to and fro, bearing tureens. Aunt Bessie, who had always been frightened twice by a clockwork mouse, whimpered at a sideboard and had some elderberry wine. The dog was sick. Auntie Dozy had to have 3 aspirins, and Auntie Hannah, who liked pork, stood in the middle of the blow-up balloons to see how big they would blow up to. And then, stood in the middle of the snowbound backyard singing like a big bosom thrush. I would blow up balloons and see how big they would blow up to, and then when they burst, which they all did, the uncles jumped and rumbled in the rich and heavy afternoon, the uncles breathing like dolphins and the snow descending. I would sit among the festoons and Chinese lanterns and nibble dates and try to make a model of a man of war, following the instructions for little engineers, and produced what might be mistaken for a seagoing tram car. Or I would go out, my bright new boots squeaking into the white world on the seaward trail, to call on Im and Dan and Jack and pad through the still streets, leaving huge, deep footprints in the pavement.
I bet people will think they've been hippos.
What would you do if you saw a hippo coming down our street?
I'd go like this, bang, and I'd throw him over the railings and roll him down a hill, and then when I would get him, tickle him under the ears, and he would wag his tail.
What would you do if you saw two hippos?
Iron-flanked and billowing, he-hippos clanked and battered through the scudding snow towards us as we passed Mr. Daniels' house.
Let's post Mr. Daniels a snowball through his letterbox.
Let's write things in the snow.
That's right, Mr. Daniels looks like a spaniel over his front lawn.
Or we walked to the white shore.
Can the fishes see it snowing?
The silent, one-clouded heavens drifted onto the sea. Now we were snow-blind travelers lost in the North Hills, and vast, dew-lapped dogs with flasks around their neck ambled and shambled up to us baying Excelsior. We returned home through the poor streets where only a few children fumbled with bare red fingers in the wheel-rutted snow and catcalled after us. Their voices fading away as we trudged uphill into the cries of the dock birds and the hooting of ships out in the Whistling Bay and the Whirling Bay. And then at tea, the recovered uncles would be jolly, and the ice cake loomed in the center of the table like a marble grave. Auntie Hannah laced her tea with rum, because it was only once a year. Bring out the tall tales now that we told by the firelight and gaslight bubbled like a diver. Ghosts who, like owls in the long nights when I dared not look over my shoulder, animals lurked in the cubbyholes under the stairs where the gas meters ticked. And I remember that we went singing carols once where there wasn't a shading of the moon to light the flying streets. And at the end of the long road was a drive that led up to a large house, and we stumbled up in the darkness of the drive that night, each of us afraid, each one holding a stone in his hand in case, and all of us too brave to say a word. The wind through the trees made noises as of old, and unpleasant, and maybe web-footed men wheezing in caves. We reached the black bulk of the house.
What shall we give them? Hark the herald?
No, good King Wenceslas. I'll count to 3.
1, 2, 3, and we began to sing, our voice high and seemingly distant in the snow-felted darkness around the house that was occupied by nobody we knew. We stood close together near the dark door.
Good King Wenceslas, let's look out on the feast of Stephen.
And a small, dry voice, like the voice of someone who had never spoken in a long time, joined our singing. A small, dry, eggshell voice from the other side of the door. A small, dry voice through the keyhole. And when we stopped running, we were outside our house. The front room was lovely. Balloons floated under the hot water, gulping gas. Everything was good again and shone over the town.
Perhaps it was a ghost.
Oh, perhaps it was trolls.
Let's go in and see. Is there any jelly left?
And we did that. Always on Christmas night, there was music. An uncle played the fiddle, a cousin sang Cherry Ripe, and another uncle said Drake's drum. It was very warm in the little house. Auntie Hannah, who had got on the parsnip wine, sang a song about bleeding hearts and death. And another in which she said her heart was like a bird's nest. And then everyone laughed again, and I went to bed, looking through my bedroom window out into the moonlight, the unending smoke-colored snow. I could see the lights from the windows in all other houses on our hill, and hear the music and night. I turned the gas down. I got into bed. I said some words to close the day, and holy darkness, then I slept. The end.
Thank you, Eric. And now I will extinguish this flame, but not the light that's shining in each of our hearts. May it guide our way and cast its light in every direction, bringing peace, joy, and love everywhere we go. Until we meet again, may your days be showered with blessings, your eyes be graced with wonder, and your hearts be filled with peace, love, and joy. And may your broken hearts be mended. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.